My name's Patrick Richard Conlon, Marine Corps. I got out, I was Lance Corporal.
Did you choose to go in, or were you drafted?
No, I volunteered, enlisted, to get out of the house. I joined the Marine Corps. And then I volunteered to go to Vietnam on top of that. So they didn't make me go, I volunteered, yeah. So.
What made you choose Marine Corps?
I walked down the field where high school I was going to, and you went out this back gate where me and some of my friends, we lived down that way. Well, there was a building there, like a strip mall almost. And one was Army, one was Navy, one was Marine Corps, and the other one might have been Air Force, okay? So me and a buddy of mine, we stopped in each one of them, right? And most of them were 4 years. And so I just went in the Marine Corps one to talk to them, and they said, yeah, you can join for 2 years, and then you can re-up. And he says, if you join for 4, you're kind of stuck for 4 years. He said, you join for 2, and you decide you like it, they'll even give you re-up pay, for re-upping. I forget what the amount was. So I joined for 2. And so that's how I joined the Marine Corps. I mean, I always liked the Marine Corps, and I had a brother-in-law that was in the Marine Corps, and things that I kind of read back then. I'm 17 years old, so just things I heard and things he told me. I said, yeah, the Marine Corps, way to go. And plus the shorter time in case I didn't like it is why I joined the Marine Corps, yeah.
So did you have to get special permission at that time, or did you wait until you were 18?
No, I was a few months shy of my 18th birthday, so I was living then with my mother and my stepfather. And I don't think both of them had to, but I know my mother did. Literally had to sign because I was under 18, and they would take you in as long as, best I could understand it, clear back then, was I'd turn 18 in boot camp, see? So they got you in there, you're not going nowhere. And so at 17, you can't just go off and go goofing around. You're in there, long story. But so that's how we did it. My mom signed, I went in, I had my 18th birthday just after I got out of boot camp, yeah.
So how was Marine boot camp?
Where do you want me to start? Yeah. Well, I rode a Greyhound bus with a bunch of other guys, and all the smokers, I just kind of started smoking then, Didn't smoke a lot, but I did. And so as we're rifling off of that bus, the bus driver goes, you might as well leave your cigarettes with me, he says, 'cause you ain't smoking here, So everybody, he had a pile of, and you get the DIs right there screaming and hollering. You had all these footprints to get on, and you're standing there. And I forget, just a bunch of stuff he's telling you, And each row, it was almost like a squad, these footprints. And first thing you did was walk in this one building, and they just cut all your hair off. So you were like bald-headed, all of us. I didn't really have that long hair then, but some of them did. One guy I can remember, a blonde-haired guy, hair plumb down past his shoulders. He walked out of there, he was bald as a bald eagle. And then from there you went and they started giving you your clothes, your issue, all that. And then they put us up in some big-ass tent. I'm sorry for the... and we... on these cots, for the night. And about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and back then I was a hard sleeper. So anyhow, I vaguely remember him banging this bucket, waking everybody up. Sun ain't even come up yet. All these guys are 18, 19, Well, I guess I was the last guy to wake up because he could literally come over and kick my cot and dump me on the floor. That was my first day in boot camp. And then got us all, took us to breakfast, And then we went to our Quonset huts, and that's where one of them, somewhere in there, they give you this Foot Locker you're going to have. And I can remember all of us, they get this Foot Locker, all your clothing they give you is in there, okay? You'd already changed out of your civilian clothes that first day. Mail that stuff off. So anyhow, now we're packing these Foot Lockers. The Foot Locker itself ain't real heavy, maybe, who knows, 7, 8 pounds or something. But with all this stuff they give you, they're pretty heavy. And we're all marching along to go to these Quonset huts we're going to live in, right? And people are dropping them boxes, and me too, and they're heavy as hell. And so, make a long story short on that, is after, I'm going to say maybe a couple of months, they move us out of them Quonset huts into what they called the hotels, okay? It's like a big building, not these little Quonset hut things. And so all our stuff's back in that Foot Locker, and that's where you keep it all anyway. So after a couple of months of running and push-ups and doing all kinds, he just picked that Foot Locker up and walked over there with it. I said, damn, So,
that was going to be my other question. Did you feel like you were strong when you went in? Were you prepared for any of that?
No, hell no. No, 17-year-old kid, I didn't do nothing, And, but they run you, what we called a good day was a 4-mile run, okay? On a bad day was a 6-mile run. But we run damn near every day at least 4 miles, every day. I mean, almost day one. Yeah. They got you in shape whether you liked it or not. Yeah.
And then, did you say the other friends had joined with you too?
Yeah, that's another long story. My cousin and our best friend, like the three of us. Ends up, my cousin never even bothered enlisting. And the other guy, he enlisted in the Army, okay? And then, being separated, so far and long, and every now and then I'd get a hold of my cousin. And the other guy's name was, it don't matter, I can't remember his name now. It'll come to me. But anyhow, I guess he got in the Army and he just couldn't deal with it. He went AWOL so many times that they finally just discharged him. So out of the three, I was the only one that hung in there. Yeah.
Are you still friends with any of the guys that you served with?
Yeah, I was with one of my best friends. It just so happens he wasn't in boot camp or anything with me, but I met him in the Marine Corps. And then, of course, years go by. He ends up working at PD, and we end up working in the same shop. And then he got a little burnt out here, so he goes over to Sierra Vista and goes to work on the Army base over there, doing the same mechanic and stuff. So he'd come visit me, or I'd go visit him, for years. And I'm going to say about a year ago now, he passed on. Yeah, he was 73 years old. So, and I was in communications. I was a radio relay operator. So they had to have communications. That whole barracks, that's all we were, was communications, yeah. And then the one next to that's another friend of mine that I went to boot camp with that showed up there about the same time I did. He was a telephone operator, the old days with the things. Yeah, that's what he did. So yeah, I was communications, and luckily, I had 2 MOSs. They were both in communications, 2531 and the 2532, I think, if I'm right. And I think the 31 was where you pack a radio on your back, and the 32 was these radios that were down in the bunkers, okay? And they looked just like a camper, that you'd put on the back of a truck with the door in the back, okay? So when you got in there, both sides were nothing but radios, okay? 12 channels receiving and 12 channels sending, okay? So every hour you had to do channel checks on every one of them. who you talk to, he'd talk to you, so you knew the commute and do the same thing, going the other direction, okay? And I had it made in there because in the summertime there, it's like, oh hell, at least 100 degrees and probably 100% humidity. So some of my buddies that were doing other things, they'd come into my radio because it's nice and cool in there, about 75 degrees, you know, AC thing going. And so that was my job mainly, and then the only time, because I was a specialist, I had to volunteer to go on patrols, okay? That's when I packed the radio, okay? And okay, by then, you know, I'm 18, pushing 19. Might have already been 19, can't remember exactly, but so you're packing this radio, and well, what I'm getting at is this compound we was on was 1,000 yards by 1,500 yards. That was it. That was your world for a year, okay? Well, at 18 years old, you know, you do anything to get the hell out of there. So I volunteered to go on patrols. And it was a little spooky. But one guy that was leaving when I got there, he told me, he says, don't be leaving that antenna clear the hell up in the air when you're out there in the bush. He says, you fold that thing up where it's about that high off your head. And that probably saved my life because generally they're after, you know, whoever's, you know, a lieutenant or a captain or maybe even a master sergeant or something go on this patrol with you. And I'm right with him because I hardly ever even use that radio. He would, you know, coordinates and stuff. And so that's what they're after, who's in charge and communications. So that's got a little nervous out there.
So in this room that you were in, people weren't communicating with you, but you were making sure that they could communicate with each other?
Right. The big radios, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know part of my thing was there was a place, it was like it was up there once, it was called Monkey Mountain. And they would contact me, and then I can't remember who the hell, it's been 50 years that I'd contact going the other way. And then he'd contact whoever. I do remember the one Monkey Mountain because it stuck in my head. And it was actually called that, Monkey Mountain, yeah.
So what were your years of service then? When did you go in and when did you get out?
I went in 69 and got out in 71.
So you just served?
I did my 2 years. Yeah.
And you wanted out?
Wanted out, yeah. After Vietnam, I was done, yeah. I would have done a full year in Vietnam, but that's when Nixon was already pulling people out of there before I even got there. But so around 10 months in country, our unit got pulled out. We went to Japan for 2 months, and then I got out, literally out of the Marine Corps.
So is there any of that you learned in the military that you took with you? Did you use the communication skills any other time anywhere?
Well, yeah, some things, you know, because they instill in you, you know, to follow orders, things like that. Of course, you know, to a point. If some guy tells you to jump off a cliff, you don't do it. But yeah, most of the time my boss told me to do something, I did it, you know. A friend of my first wife's husband was a manager at a welding school. And I kind of got to know him, see. And so it was a welding school and a testing lab where you tested these guys learning how to weld. You tested their welds, okay? So I got to know him pretty good, like I say. So he got me a job in that testing lab. So I worked in there about a year or so, and the school's right there, just next door, basically. Just a big driveway in between. So I hit him up one time. I said, because it dawned on me, they got a day shift school and a night, you know, like, say, swing shift school. So hell, he says, yeah, if you want to learn how to weld, you know, just work. And so I'd go home. I lived maybe 10 minutes away from this place. So I'd go home for a little while and go back. I forget, it was like an hour or two later after the day shift school was over to the night shift, night school. and just learned how to weld for free. Made a living off that for years, yeah. And then when I got over here, they were short on mechanics in the heavy-duty truck shop. So they put me in the heavy-duty truck shop. I told them, man, I've never even seen one of these huge-ass trucks, let alone work on them. Well, you want to learn them or not, you know? Well, I guess I done quit my job, you know? And so, because I was a welder on the Desert Center. So I thought, well, he said, we'll get you in the boiler shop as soon as we can. Well, I'm still waiting to get in that boiler shop. So I actually learned another trade, mechanicing, yeah. So can't complain, I guess.
What was it like coming home?
Oh, it was pretty good. What kind of bothered me was, well, I got discharged in Treasure Island in San Francisco, okay? My parents still lived in California, down like near LA. So I just grabbed a Greyhound bus, and I forget where I got off at. And then out there they call them RTD. They're the buses that kind of, like you see in Tucson, that people are sitting there waiting to get on and go wherever they're going. Got on one of them to, within 4 or 5 blocks of where my parents lived, okay? So I got in the Army, it's a duffel bag. Marine Corps, it's a sea bag, okay? So, same thing. So I'm walking along, nobody talked to you, nobody says anything to you. And so when I get home, I knock on the door, and my stepbrother answers the door. Hey, Pat, how you doing? He's sitting there watching TV. So I sit down, and my mom's in the kitchen cooking something, She just comes out, gives me a little hug, and goes back and keeps cooking. I'd only been gone a year, and it was like I just been gone for a day or two. Yeah, it was kind of odd. Yeah.
Were you treated poorly in the airport or anything? Did anybody?
No. The plane we flew in on from Japan, it was all military.
Oh, okay. So you didn't have to go through the airport or anything. That's
no.
Good. Okay.
And it's been so long now. I can't remember where we landed, but it was military. It got us and took us to where we were going to get discharged. So then once you got discharged, now you're basically on your own, okay? And that's where I got a Greyhound. I don't remember getting messed with there. Where I found it hard was my brother had been back naturally quite a while, and he took me out of, a couple of different bars. I wasn't even old enough to drink yet, even though I'm old enough to go die, but not only. But he knew the people. I'd have a couple of beers with my brother, and people in them bars that messed with me, I'd kind of hurt a couple of them a couple of times. But I almost had to wait till my hair grew out, because in the Marine Corps, you keep your hair, you got to keep, you call it high and tight. And so, yeah, you pretty much looking around all the time if somebody's going to mess with you, because if they knew you was in the military, it was sad. Yeah.
How are you treated now if you're wearing your service, if you're wearing a cap or something?
What surprises me is, I don't know when it started, but I'm going to say at least 10 years ago. Like if I'm wearing my military kind of hats, or the wife's got me a couple of jackets for in the winter that say Marine Corps on them, I have people literally thanking me for my service, and it just blows me away, yeah. But man, for I don't know how many years, I don't know, a lot of years, 15, 20 years, people still, had a thing about the military. I don't know why.
Treated like a villain.
Yeah.
So what about the medical?
Oh, I didn't even do through the VA, because I had good insurance with Phelps Dodge and some of the other places I worked. Didn't even think about it, Well, I started having some serious issues, and I forget exactly now who told me to check with the VA. So I did. Well, matter of fact, my wife, her dad had just died, maybe just a few months before what I'm going to get at. And so she wanted to go to the VA in Tucson and see about some benefits for him, to get him buried and stuff. So I just drove her down there. She's sitting at a desk with some gal. I'm just sitting in the back a little bit, looking at a magazine. And whoever that gal was said, "Sir, you were in the military?" I said, "Yeah." "Was you in Vietnam?" "Oh," she says, "Did you have one foot in Vietnam?" I said, "I had both feet in Vietnam." She handed me a bunch of papers, said, "Fill these out." Next thing I know, I'm in the VA, got all this medical coverage. I had prostate surgery, hip replacements, all paid for by the
100%.
100%. Didn't pay a dime. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's real nice. And you wouldn't believe that hospital. It's huge. And the people I met there, good people, good doctors. Yeah,
You feel like you got good care?
Oh, yeah. Excellent care, yeah. No complaints at all.
The Agent Orange, that was in the 60s, wasn't it? So you were there long after that had already been done?
No, the Agent Orange, they were spraying that when I was there. Yeah, that's, see, I filed a claim with them. Oh, I'm going to say going on 10 years ago. Okay, and they 100% disabled me, okay? One of it is from Agent Orange. That's the main one. And another one is, well, I had tendonitis from all the things over there going off and shit. That started it. And then I had to get a tumor removed out of my lung. That particular type of tumor, they said 99% chance it was from Agent Orange. So they 100%ed me, yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah, I've told them more than once. They'd ask me, when I'm talking to people at the VA. I said, hell, it was almost a daily thing. You could see them planes way the hell up there with this big old mist coming out the back of them planes, Be 3 or 4 of them just defaulting everything, killing all the plant life. All us guys are down there breathing that junk, yeah.
Just right over the top of you, huh?
Oh, it's quite a ways up, but it comes down, and you breathe it. Yeah, you can't taste it. I couldn't smell it, but but it was just a particular type of tumor that I had. They know more than they let people know. It wasn't some other goofy tumor. It was most of that Agent Orange. You got a particular type of tumor, and that's what I had. Yeah. So.
What would you tell someone that's considering serving now?
Thinks about serving? Is that what you said? Oh, heck, yeah, some of these questions you don't even think about. I just tell them if they really wanted to join the Marine Corps, just do the best you can and follow orders and stay in shape, because once a year you have to take a physical, not a physical, but a PT test. And if you don't pass that PT test, then I forget what it is now, but back when I was in, it was like every 3 or 4 months you had to do it again until you passed it. Yeah. That was one of the things, was they instilled in you, the laws, their rules. And if you deviated off of that, you were in deep trouble. Yeah. You've got to kind of want it. You got to kind of like it, because there's a lot of rules, a lot of regulations, and but you can be proud of yourself. You're serving your country, and you meet a lot of cool people, people that are, love their country. That's what I liked about it. I'm proud to be a Marine, I really am, yeah. So, and these Army guys will give you a hard time, and all, but they know we were badass.
Bethany Lamb. I did 10 years active duty in the Air Force, and then I've been in the reserves since 2018. When 9/11 happened, I remember I was sitting in 5th grade and it was on the news, and that was one thing also that drove me to like join the military, because these people were attacking our country, and I'm a 5th grader sitting there like, okay, maybe I can do something about that. Maybe. I joined when I was 18, 19, almost 19, and I didn't want to go to college at the time. I didn't want to do all that, so I was like, all right, well, let me go do this. Let me get some structure and some discipline in my life, because that's kind of wild. And I was like, all right, well, let me go do that. And it was pretty scary. I was partying and doing all the things that teens do. And I like got to a point where I was like, okay, if I don't figure life out, I'm not going to end up where I want to end up. So I was like, Mom, I'm just going to go to the Air Force. I'm going to do 4 years, and then I'm going to get out and go to nursing school and do all that. And then life happens, and I got married, and then I had a baby, and 4 years turned into 10. So I joined in August of 2009 into what they call the delayed enlistment program, where I had to wait for my job like opening to slot me in. But I didn't leave for basic until March of 2010. So I had about 6 months ish where I was just here in limbo waiting. And if they could have called me earlier, they would have. And you just have to wait for a position to open. Alamogordo, that was my first duty station. And I was there from 2010 until 2013. And then I got moved to Tucson. And I have been in Tucson ever since. I am a weapons technician, so I put weapons on airplanes. Right now I'm in the helicopter squadron, so we put guns on helicopters. And that in like the Navy is called an ordnance personnel. And they deal, but theirs is like ammo and weapons all in one, whereas in the Air Force, like munitions is separate than like a weapons loader. So like munitions builds all the bombs and the ammunition, and then they bring it out to us and we put it on the aircraft. We have these little trucks that'll hold the bombs, and you drive them up, and there's racks that they go on, and you lock them in and pin them and stuff and arm them up, and then they go off and fly and drop them and come back empty. Working in a very male-dominant career field, you definitely have to like work harder and like hold your weight. I've seen some women in my career field that like will skate off and let the men do everything, and I'm like, that's why we have a bad name, because people like you don't hold your own and like do your job. So then the ones that do their job, we still get put in that category of like, women shouldn't be maintainers. And I'm like, that's not very fair, because I have plenty of friends that are awesome maintainers, and they're women, and they'll get a jet ready faster than any dude I ever met. But they still get put in that, oh, you're just a girl, you shouldn't be working out here. I'm in a rescue squadron, so we do combat search and rescue. And so we deploy every 1 to 2 years. I deployed in 2017 to Turkey for 7 months. Yeah, we were there during the Turkish coup, where like their military tries to take over their government, and it was all kinds of crazy. I went to Africa in 2020. I was in the reserves, but I had a federal service job in Tucson at the base, which is my same job, just on civilian side. And so I was working 10, 12 hours a day, and my daughter was at daycare, school, 10, 12 hours. And I'm like, this is not how I want to raise her in a big city by myself. So after my deployment, when I got back, I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to move home and I'm going to go to nursing school. And she said, okay. So she moved me and my daughter into her house. And we lived there for about 1.5 years while I went to school. And I'm still in school, but I moved out into my own house and we're doing good. I don't know. I'm more thankful for them, I think, because they help more than they can even imagine with my daughter and everything else. So. I've always wanted to be a nurse, always. And then I just, like I said, in high school, I didn't really take school seriously. I was just over it. I didn't want to do it. I wanted to have fun. And then when I joined the military and started working and doing that, I was like, ooh, this is not really what I want to do for the rest of my life. I don't want to work outside in the heat and be dirty and do that all the time. Like, that's not what I want to do. And so I'd always had this plan, like I was going to go to nursing school. One way or another, I was going to do it. And then I just finally was like, okay, it's either now or never. Like, if I don't do it now, like, it's never going to happen. And so I just kind of bit the bullet and left everything that I ever knew and was like, okay, let's just start over from scratch. What I want to do is labor and delivery. Like, I gotta help moms bring life into the world, because that's something you'll never forget ever in your life. And being a mom myself, I'm like, I was so grateful for all of my labor and delivery nurses. I can be an officer in the reserves and continue my career there, because I've been in 14 years almost. So I have like 6 left to retire. Your time in service of 20 years, like, that counts. That matters. That's a big deal. And so you can retire with your military honors and do all of that. And it's a big deal. It's good for people to, like, if you need structure, if you need balance, like, it's a good place to start. If you want to make a career out of it, get your college degree first and go be an officer. Enlisted is good. I mean, I would not change my experience being enlisted at all, but to make a career and make it, like, beneficial more so than out on the civilian side, I guess, get your degree and commission and be an officer. It does give you discipline, it gives you structure, it makes you, like, really see what goes into your military and what they do for your country. If you like to be, like, mechanical, if you like to do that, go enlisted, because you can work on airplanes, you can work on vehicles. There's so many things you can do maintenance-wise. But if you're more of, like, an office person or like to be inside, get your degree in, like, administration, and then you can be an officer and run, like, a unit. You'd run, like, the group or whatever. You just gotta find something that you like and then see if it transfers to military wording and go from there. When you raise your right hand and you say your enlistment oath to serve your country, like, that's very rewarding. You're like, oh, that's a big deal, and it means a lot. And some people don't take it seriously. Like, you have people that join that are just like, oh, I'm here for this many years just to get school money or whatever. And then you get some people that are like, I'm here to make this a career. I'm here to do 20 years. I want to be a lifer. And then you get people that are like, well, we're going to see how it goes. And then those people usually turn into lifers, because they're like, you know, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. And really, the military isn't as bad as people are like. It's terrible, and it's really not. They feed you. Like, your first 4 years. They put you in a place to live, they feed you, they make sure like you have your necessities, and they like groom you to be a successful airman. And so like taking the oath, you're like, okay, I gotta uphold this and do my part because they're doing their part for me. So I gotta do my part for them. Honestly, I don't think I would have done anything different. 19-year-old me, maybe I would have been a little more serious in my first couple years, done things a little bit different. But now, like, I'm in nursing school, and then I'm going to commission to be an officer, to be a nurse in the Air Force. So, like, I think the whole path just, like, led me to where I'm at now.
Joe Bowman.
Terry Bowman. I was in the Navy from 68 to 72. I was an E5, bosun mate, second class. Vietnam War was going on in either. I thought, well, I'm going to serve. I wanted to serve, and so I joined the Navy and thought I'd stay out of it, but they had us over there. I spent 3 cruises over in Nam. We ran the rivers, we was behind enemy lines picking up the pilots, and we got rocketed one night. I mean, it was just, I don't know, it was just crazy. I went in 68, went down, told them I want to go a month or 2 after my birthday, November the 3rd. I was turning 18. Okay, I signed the papers, and here come my order, November the 5th, I shipped in. I'm going to go in the service and put 20 in, retire, be young, 37. And first morning they come in and went to kicking the racks and stuff over. I said, well, I got 1,460 days left. I started me a short timer's calendar. I'm getting out of here. My tour of duty, I spent 2.5 years at sea. I made 3 Westpacks. 2.5 years at sea on a 4-year enlistment. I come back, our first ship, they decommissioned it. They put me on a ship going right back over. USS Whetstone, LSD-27, it was a flat bottom boat. We took the Mike boats in, put the Marines on the shore. And the second ship was a LPH, kind of a platform for helicopters. And I spent the last 2 years there. Yeah, our first cruise on that LSD, it did about 8-9 knots is all it did. And we left the States, it was 31 days before we pulled into Da Nang Harbor. We did pick up Apollo 13. We come back to Hawaii, and they sent us out to pick up the Apollo. And had a Russian trawler following us the whole time. We couldn't trying to outrun him and stuff. But then when they come down, one of the parachutes didn't quite open on the Apollo. And the Russian trawler wanted to know if they needed help picking them up. But we did pick up Apollo 13. But after she had graduated from high school, I come in from the service, and then we got married. And the first time they ever let us fly our wives from the state to Hawaii, and going to let our wives ride back on the ship with us, So she went over there and got on the ship, and when we left, seas were just as calm, and all the women were seasick. It was a mess for a while. They was going to shoot the guns for them back there, and I said, take the camera back there, and I said, I was on the forward gun mount, and I could hear the commands and stuff, and I said, when it goes off, I said, take a picture. I said, that flame shoots out there 3 or 4 feet, There's all up there on the upper deck looking down at them, all the wives. They heard the command to fire. When that gun went off, them women broke and ran. I said, did you get the picture? And she said, no. Yeah, shipped me back. 3 days later, I was here on the street, I'd wake up at night. Where am I? I'm supposed to be on watch, It's still fresh in my mind, But can't remember your name in 30 minutes, you know, but everything that happened then is still right there, you know.
So I served in the Army from 1995 to 1999. I just wanted to do a little something before I got tied up into farming. I wanted to get out of town, and so I went down to join the Marine Corps and got talked out of that. Or recruiter wasn't quite smart enough to get me on the hook. Had no intent of joining the Army, and I was leaving, and the Army recruiter was kind of locking his door. And he says, "Did you join?" I said, "I'm thinking about it." Had a handful of papers, and he says, "Well, I'm going to lunch." He says, "Why don't you let Uncle Sam buy you lunch?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, you know, 21 years old. Yeah, that'd be good. Let's go eat lunch." So, time we come back, he had me signing up in the in the Army. I went in there with the full intent of just joining up for 2 years too, and it got me for 4 years. And afterwards, I went home. That's when I told Blanca. I says, "Well, I joined the Army." She said, "You did what?" And I said, "I told you I was going down there to join. I went to join the Marines, but I said I joined the Army." She says, "That's when we either got to break it off, or," she said, "we either got to get married or break it off." It was get married. That was the one she was leaning towards. So, well, let's get married. So that's when, and we planned a wedding after that too. So I was stationed at Fort Bragg. I spent my entire 4 years there. Did a little stuff down in New Orleans and up in Fort Drum, little training, but I never left stateside. I was a paratrooper in the Army during that time. A lot of late night jumps, and I think I got out of there, I had 87 jumps and jumped out of most of the aircrafts they had. So mostly C-130s, yeah. Jumped out of helicopters, jumped out of a Twin Otter a few times, C-141s. Those was the jet style planes. They couldn't quite slow down as much as a C-130, so it was a little rougher getting out of those. But well, plane, we'd fly map of the Earth for an hour, you know, and like it's flying you in somewhere, simulation, and then we'd make our jumps. Usually it was your full gear. You'd have your out your weapon, all that stuff, and then we called them Old Dark 30. It usually used to be somewhere 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, so you'd jump into pitch black and just doing training, you know. And so those were most of the jumps. I got put on a test directory for a while, and we jumped out of helicopters. Those were daytime jumps without any gear, so that was 3 months of it was pretty fun on Fridays, just jumping those. And so a helicopter, you're just hanging on the side. It was a lot of fun. That's not something that we just got to do. That was because you were special for a little bit there, you know. So and so it was pretty fun doing that. But yeah, the night jumps weren't all that fun.
Yeah.
We lost one guy. So you had this. They had all the equipment in the plane. They gave us a green light, but we always went through the thing. So you had somebody out the door, you know, come back. We're all standing chalk 1 or whatever chalk you're on. And 10 minutes, and so we'd all holler 10 minutes, and 5 minutes, and 1 minute, and then 10 seconds, and we're gonna go, you know. And so then go, and green light would come on. So anyways, we had a sergeant one time, and he's looking out the door trying to find our mark, you know. And we're about 30 miles out of our drop zone or so, maybe a little less, but we get sucked out of the plane in the dark. You know, and there's a lot of water, power lines. I mean, you know, all those dangers, you know, and we're worried about our sergeant, and but he wound up dropping into somebody's backyard, knocked on the door, had to call, and we had to send a Humvee up to pick him up. But yeah, it was kind of funny. We got jumped with the Air Force CCT team, and that's kind of their elite team. But we talked them into lowering the tailgate on an airplane, and that was pretty exciting jump. I got to do that a few times, but just the whole back end would lower down, and then we would go off at the back of that, and it was pretty exciting. It was interesting. That was probably the more exciting jumps that I got to do, but. So yeah, I have a parachute, I call it paramotoring. So I got basically a lawnmower motor you strap on your back and pop your parachute up and fly into the wild blue yonder. I'm always looking for something exciting to do. I wished I would have had this 20 years ago. It would have been, I think it through too much now, let's put it that way. I probably would have joined the Air Force in hindsight. And so my boy's looking, he's talking about maybe the service, and that's kind of where I'm leaning him if he's going to do it. I say, hey, you might be better off getting in the Air Force. So I might have done that if I was probably to redo it all. But not, I really wouldn't change much. I had a good time looking back.
One uncle was in the Navy, and then I had another uncle and aunt that was in the Army. One was the Corps Army. My dad was in the Army, but I don't know. I wanted to see some of the world too, you know, instead of just going over Nam. And I did. We got to New Zealand. We seen, you know, I seen a lot of that Far East country, and that's what I more or less went in for, just to. But I knew I was going to be drafted, so I knew you had to go. I got out in September. They let me out for early to go to school in '72, and that's when Saigon fell. And I said, if they try to call me back, I'm going to Canada.
And we did. I got a nephew. He was going to join the. I don't know. I think he was leaning. He was looking at the Navy for a little bit, and I told him, I said, "Man, you better join the Air Force," you know. And so he wound up joining the Air Force. He's been in for 6 years, 7 years now.
He's in Germany right now.
I think he's going to wind up making a career out of it. So.
Yeah, it does change you. Changes you know, makes you more mature, more responsible. Come back and you feel like you're part of this country, you know, when you're served. It just, you feel like you've done your part.
I'm Chris Gibbs. I was active duty in the United States Air Force for a total of 24 years. Of that, 12 was as an enlisted man and 12 as an officer, and I retired as a captain. I joined in 1973 and had active duty time for quite a while, 6 years, then was out for a while, and then re-entered the service. I went to West Point right out of high school as a cadet, and the Air Force wanted me to go to the Air Force Academy, but then they saw what my eyeglasses were. And back then, to go to the Air Force Academy, you had to be a pilot or a navigator. Well, I couldn't be either one with my prescription. So, you know, that wasn't there. But I could march around in circles and carry a sword. So I went into the Air Force as an aircraft instrumentation electronics specialist. It was good. I worked on some really cool airplanes, everything from the biggest in the Air Force inventory, the C-5, down to the littlest, an OV-10 Bronco. It's a two-engine prop aircraft used extensively in Vietnam and Grenada and as a forward air controller. Illinois was where I first went for initial training in missile electronics, and that was about a year. Then I went to Great Falls, Montana, Malmstrom Air Force Base. It's a ICBM base. I was there for about 5 years. That's when I got out of the military. It was good up until, you know, my wife decided she didn't want to do that anymore. So I left the military, like I say, and when I came back in, I went to Travis Air Force Base in California to work on C-5s. And then later was able to go to Germany to work on OV-10s. But there, because we had such a small mission. We got to work on almost anything that was in the inventory. We were on a small base, Sembach Air Base in Germany, and it's only about 20 minutes from Ramstein, which is like the biggest Air Force base overseas. So it's a hub. And so I got to work on a lot of aircraft that were stationed at Ramstein or transient, because when you're good, you're good. Actually, after Sembach, I came to the University of Arizona on an Air Force scholarship. They sent me here to be an aerospace engineer. I was able to get 2 engineering degrees while I was there. I was a mechanical engineer and an aerospace engineer. I went from that. They wanted me to stay and get masters, and I didn't really want to. While I was there, I divorced, and I was a single parent with 3 kids going to college. It was interesting. But then I went to the B-1 bomber, B-1B test team in Texas. I thought I was going to NASA. I had a by name request to go to NASA, and in their infinite wisdom, the Air Force looked at my background and said, we really need you on the B-1 test team. They were having some real problems. And so I went to Dyess Air Force Base in Texas to work on the B-1 bomber. And that's where I met my present wife. And she was a maintenance officer, and I was the astro space engineer working on defensive systems for the B-1. It was a $1 billion aircraft that was supposed to be completely stealthy. You couldn't see it. It looked like a robin on a radar screen, except for one thing. It looked like a freight train, and they couldn't figure out why. And so I was one of the people that had to go in there and figure that out. It was really quite unusual because I always thought I was good at my job. But when I got there, I was really good. And we discovered the problem almost immediately. And so I was the lead as a second lieutenant, leading the team to fix all this. So when I left there, they gave me my choice of anything I wanted to do. I had started to date my wife, and when you're a single parent, finding someone is not always easy. So I said, well, we better get married real quickly so the Air Force will have to send us together. When we dated, we were both on the test team. She was already a captain and well along. But I was a second lieutenant, and so she outranked me by at least 5 years. So as we progressing and the test team was dissolving, we moved to Colorado Springs, talking about how we would deal with that. I always knew that when I hit 20 years, I'd retire. And we'd go wherever she went, because she was a career officer. I mean, she was legitimately, a dedicated resource. It was more important to me that she was happy and doing her job. So I retired, and we went back to the D.C. area. And she worked for the Defense Logistics Agency. I loved my jobs. I love being in the Air Force. It's wonderful, serving